All right, so I'm sure you're familiar with the old vulnerability check feature.
Yeah, yeah.
We deprecated and we removed that in the 15.0 release, so that's actually gone entirely. We've been replacing that for quite some time with the new security policies feature. So actually, why don't I just start this from kind of the old view where you would go here into the settings area and you look at these merge request approvals. You'll notice there's no longer an option for vulnerability check.
hmm
Um, and instead, you'll notice I have this security gate rule that appears, here's your approval rules, and then here are your security approvals. It's kind of in a separate section.
Okay.
And it appears down here. And the reason for that is because you actually cannot configure it down here in this area. So we present it in this view so that you have one place to go to get a list of all of your approvals that apply to the project. But we're actually following a principle of separation of duties here so that the security and compliance approval policies can be managed separately from all of the other like development approvals. And that's because we tend to see a different persona, right?
Yeah.
Normally, the security and compliance team that manage these security approvals, whereas the maintainers of the project typically have permission to manage all of these.
Yep.
So if I click create security policy or edit policy, either way, what that's going to do is it's going to take me over to this security and compliance policies page, which is new in the product. And it's going to basically redirect me to edit and manage my policies over here. All of these policies are stored as YAML in a linked
Okay.
security policy project. So only the owner of the project is able to manage that relationship between the development project and the security policy project. In fact, let me pull up our documentation real quick because we have a good visualization. So you end up with two separate projects in GitLab.
hmm
And these do not even have to be under the same group. So they can
Yeah,
be
okay.
anywhere in GitLab, and it supports a one-to-many linking. So you can have one security policy project that manages the policies for multiple development projects if you would like. But again, the management of that linking is restricted only to the project owner. So the very first time that a policy is created, you actually have to have a project owner do that if a project isn't already linked. So you see here, I've got the customer web portal project, and then I've my customer web portal dash security policy project is linked. And in here, I've got three policies. Two of them are enabled. So you've got the green check. This one's created but not enabled. It's sort of like a draft or test policy. And if I come up to the main group up here, you'll see this project, this happens to be in the same group. It doesn't have to be in the same group to apply, but in here, it's just a very vanilla project, right? We've got this, sorry, let me come back in. README and .gitlab slash security policies folder, and in here is a policy.yaml file. That's it. But by separating this out in a different project,
Yeah,
you
we can have security people, maintainer here, and yeah,
exactly,
that's
and you
great.
can have your own approval process for this security project too. So you can say, Dominic, you by yourself are not allowed to change the security policies. You have
Yep.
to submit this change for approval. So in here, it's just YAML. You've got, three different policies that are going to be in here, should be in here. I actually only see two, so that's interesting. I'll have to look into that more.
The other one
There
said
should be two.
inherited in the UI. I don't know how that
Oh,
works.
right. Yep. So you're right. That's the feature we just released of group level policies. So that's
Okay.
managed at the project level. Um, and then you can actually do the same thing at the group level. So here's my group. I have my policies. Yep. This is that required DAST one. And you'll see this one is this Wayne Financial Security
hmm
Policy Project. And then this flows down to all of the projects inside of this group. So that's kind of an easier way if you want to just link it up once and manage it your group or subgroup level. And then in here to edit these policies, you can of course read our documentation and manually create the YAML yourself. but we've also been hard at work creating a nice UI experience for this. So this security gate policy, some of these are scan execution policies. They require scans to run. And then scan result policies require approval when new vulnerabilities are found. So if I click new policy, it kind of gives me an overview of the difference between the two. We won't really dive into the scan execution ones because that's not really the focus of today's conversation, but the scan result ones are really what replaced vulnerability checks. So if I come into this security gate policy, you'll see I can either edit the YAML directly here in YAML mode, or I can come over to rule mode, and anything I type here is going to live update on the right. So, you know, as you can see, it just gives you a live preview of what that YAML is going to be, enabled, disabled, and then you can chain multiple rules together, and you can make this really as specific as you want. So you can say, you know, for you know, secret detection, I want to trigger anytime there's a critical and a high that's newly detected in the main branch. For, you know, you can chain lots of these rules together if you want. For DAST, I only care about the criticals. For, you know, SAST, you know, you can just kind of keep going here. I think right now we have a limit of, I believe it's 5 rules, but we do have an issue plan in our backlog to review that limit because it was kind of just arbitrarily set. So there's not really a reason necessarily why that couldn't potentially be higher. And then just like before, you can specify either users or groups as eligible approvers for these. So again, lots of criteria here that you can filter on. You know, you can get really specific on, you know, exactly what you're looking for.
Cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think it's really close, but for our current use case, our big problem is that the current categories like secret detection or DAS or SAS is a bit too big, because right now all of those things have a very high number of false positives. So if we block on all those findings, it would be nice, but developers will hate us.
Sure.
So if we could filter either by, I don't know how to, like maybe it's in another project, so it doesn't really know that, but like maybe the job name, like the results coming from this job, or maybe like a pattern for a rule name. Like we created rules that are GL AppSec underscore something. Like if the rule is this and if there's a detection for this rule, then now we want an approval. Just because, yeah, most of the findings are still false positives. We're just trying to tune the rules, but we have a separate set of custom rules that really are created after that. Like when we've had a couple of vulnerabilities that are super similar. We try to create a rule that really makes sure we never see this again. And those are, we know, are high value rules. And these are the ones right now that we'd like to have an approval for. Eventually, we'd like to have an approval for everything when we really trust the results. But right now, I think that would be very annoying for the developer experience. So yeah, fine tuning that filter, what we want to trigger the approval is would be really
I
great.
believe you can do that. I understand from like a feature request perspective, it would definitely be nice to do that in that policy UI.
Yeah, if the YAML allows it, that's
The
good
YAML
enough.
allows it. But just, you know, taking my like, you know, so that's a great feature request, but if we focus on like what could we do today in the product,
Yep.
you actually can, you know, one potential way to solve that, if I were you and I wanted to turn this on today, is I would create a custom rule set for secret detection, and I would remap the severities for anything that was generating too many false positives, and I'd make sure that those didn't have any severities greater than high, so that there were no critical. And then those ones that, you know, you've pressure tested in the field, I would make sure that those all had critical severities, And then I would
Okay.
create an
Yeah,
approval
that makes sense.
policy to trigger only on the criticals. Because you can use that custom rule set file, I believe, to remap the severities if you want to. So that
Yeah.
might be a way to get around it in the meantime.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Hmm.
But even if
Yeah,
you
that's
wanted to turn it on for, other things besides secret detection, we do support the ability to filter by scanner type as well.
yeah, yeah, it would be SAST actually. I said secret detection, but right now it would be SAST, but the same idea applies.
But yeah, if you
Just
wanted to do it for container scanning or dependency scanning or something else, right, you could always do that as well.
and it works with like if there's an existing issue in the dashboard, let's say it's critical, does it care that it exists, something existed before? It really just looks at what is introduced in this MR.
Yeah, so that depends on the policy you create. So you could
Okay,
define that, right? So suppose you
newly
don't test
detected.
fast and secret detection, so or DAST, right? But you could turn this on for those four. So that's the nice thing is you can be specific about which scanners you want to include or exclude. And then you could say if it's introducing if a critical or high is newly detected. So if it's newly detected, that means it doesn't care if there's an issue created. It just looks to see, is this detected in the merge request branch and not in the default branch? And if that's the case, it will trigger on the newly detected state. All of these other four statuses, the previously detected is kind of a catch-all for the other three. And then, you know, these other ones are like, they already exist on the default branch in a confirmed state or dismissed or resolved. So, that's kind of more of an edge case
Yeah.
scenario for most of our users. I have heard it from some users, like they actually want to enforce that as like a cleanup mechanism to say, you're not putting any new code in until you go back and clean up your criticals that already exist. So, that's a thing, but assuming, most users come in and they just want newly detected it sounds like what you're looking for.
Yeah, it is, at least for now.
So yeah, you can choose which of these you select.
Okay, sounds great. So, okay, so we just need like the path forward right now if we want this on GitLab would be to get an owner to just create this link
Yep.
and then we create our policy. And once the link is created, we just change the YAML and it happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So once the link is created, the owner should make sure to give you maintainer permissions on that linked project.
Yeah.
And after that point, you don't need the owner anymore. The owner is only to set up that link and to give you permission to manage that policy project. So after that, you make your changes in there. And once those changes are merged into the default branch for the security policy project, then it takes effect for any projects out there that have that policy linked up to it. So you can do that linking at the group level if you want. Now we actually just turned that on in production, or the subgroup or the individual projects, and it just all flows down. So it's all
Cool.
additive.
Very cool. Okay. Yeah, there's definitely something we can do with that and clean up some custom stuff. I think I'll just write something up and post in the turn on security approvals and GitLab project issue that is 10 months old and try to I I think my proposal will be different from what the original issue had there, but yeah,
Yeah,
instead of turning approvals for everything, I think we just start with approvals for our custom rules that we just created and start working from there.
yeah, I think that's a great idea.
And once we have that in place, yeah, we can grow it to the other scanners later once we figure out that life isn't that horrible with security approvals enabled.
Yeah, like I said, this is an area where the board of directors actually allocated money to hire a new engineer to focus exclusively on this only. That happened about a year ago, so we now have like a full year's worth of development here that you did not have, 8 months ago. So
Yeah, yeah.
as you can tell, a lot has changed, and we're actively adding more to this area too. Like it's not stopping here. So um, anyway, I liked your idea of closing out that issue that's there because it's really long and bloated, and maybe just creating a new one too if you wanted to go that route. Either way, it's up to you.
All right. Yeah, I'll create a new one. I'll post a link in the old one and suggest closing it. I won't close it right out because I don't know, a bunch of people have discussions there, but propose an alternative solution and go with that. Cool.
And if you have time for a few more minutes,
Yeah.
I actually have a slightly different topic that I've been meaning to talk with you about. So I know you ended up going forward with the production scanning. I think you're using twist lock and one other. I forget. Is it?
Encore, I think the name. I'm not super into that initiative and I don't have a whole lot of details, so I don't know if I can answer your questions, but we can try.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware. I mean, we've had the ability to run scans in a production environment for quite a while now. It's just been in the alpha phase. But it's looking probable that for 15.2, we'll be able to move that to GA.
Okay.
So that's something that you could actually do with GitLab, without paying for Encore or Twistlock. Of course, if you want to run those as well, there's no reason that you can't run all three kinds of scanning. But it would be fantastic if we could get that started as well, just from a dog fooding perspective, so that we can start getting some feedback on what we've got to scan the production environments.
Okay, cool. I know part of the reason why we run all those things is that customers run them and ask us like specific stuff about, hey, we have this twist lock result, look at it. And so we're trying to get ahead of that. But yeah, we can probably
But it can be
dog food
additive,
anyway.
right? Yeah, it could be additive, right? It doesn't have to be an either or discussion. We could run twistlock and GitLab scanning, and um, it's not quite ready yet, but to do that, it actually goes back to the same policy approach again. You would create, in this case, you would create a scan execution policy. And right now you have to work just with the YAML. We don't have the rule mode yet. That's under development as well right now. But you would create a schedule instead of running as part of a pipeline. You would create it as a schedule, and then you would have you would specify which agents. All you have to do is install the GitLab agent for Kubernetes, and then you specify the name of the agent, production agent here, and then you put in a cadence, which is really just a cron job syntax, for when you want that to run.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And I think it has to be quoted so that it doesn't throw YAML errors. And then you put in here container scanning or cluster image scanning, I believe. But when it does that, it's going to run, per the cadence that you define, and then it'll actually show up on your vulnerability report under operational vulnerabilities. So you've got your development ones, and then you've got your operational ones.
Okay.
And you can filter that to only scan specific namespaces. Anyway, it would be fantastic if the security department could turn that on or start using it, just at least to give us some initial feedback on it. Would be really
Yeah, absolutely. If I'll take the link from this recording and post it in the channel and ping some people.
okay. Yeah, that'll be great.
Cool. All right. I think I think we have some cool things to do with that for sure. The policies, I'm excited to use it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for meeting today.
Cool. Thank
Good
you.
one.
See you later.